Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grow with G. I'm not here with the usual excitement that I am, just because I feel like there is so much suffering going on in the world right now, and it's really taking a toll on me. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find that Instagram is really informative, but at the same time it's really overwhelming, and I just can't really find the right balance between information versus overwhelm. I don't even know how to talk about everything that's going on in the world right now, but there's one thing for sure, which is there is so much suffering going on, and it's just heartbreaking. I don't really know how to talk about it, so I'm not really going to talk about it all, but I'm really feeling for everyone who's suffering. So, yeah, I was a bit unsure if I was going to record an episode or not, but I sort of felt it was a good time to come on here because this is really uplifting for me, and a lot of the time I'm giving myself advice that I need to listen to, and if it benefits anybody else, that is such a massive bonus and helps me feel like I'm contributing something good to the world. So yeah, it's not the same energy that I normally have, and I'm not gonna fake it because stuff is really hard right now, and I'm not even the most affected. In fact, I'm probably pretty removed from everything right now, but there are a lot of people who are really in it, and I'm sending them so much love and compassion. On top of all of the things that are going on in the world right now, I'm also just really personally exhausted. I love self-development, that's the whole reason behind this podcast, and I get a little bit obsessed with finding out things about personal development because on the one hand I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I get to choose new ways of living. I have a choice in how I'm choosing to live my life. Wild, groundbreaking. It's cool to choose new responses instead of reacting on your autopilot. But at the same time, it can feel overwhelming for me when I realize how much work I need to do. And it really takes a lot of energy to break the patterns you've been living in. So I am feeling a little bit drained just because I keep coming onto so many amazing resources that I literally cannot stop listening or reading to them, even when I know I'm going too fast and I'm learning too much, where I'm like, I know I need to slow down and I literally can't. And I think it's also been a bit exhausting because as my awareness for why people act the way they act has grown, I'm realizing that most of the time people aren't intentionally trying to hurt you, or they're actually just hurting themselves, and they're just taking it out on people in the wrong way. And I feel like now I'm sort of rationalizing everyone's behavior, being like, oh, well, they're only being mean to me because they're hurt themselves, so I shouldn't feel hurt by this. And on the one hand, that's really helpful because that separates things and I don't feel as personally as attacked as I used to. But on the other hand, it's exhausting to justify everyone's, bad behavior as well. And even my therapist has picked up on it, because I'll be like, oh, but it's fine because of XYZ, going on in their life. And she's like, stop explaining for everybody else. Like, you are allowed to feel what you feel. Your feelings are valid because you feel them, not because of whatever circumstance surrounds them or doesn't surround them, So I'm really trying to embody that message recently, that whatever is in your reality is your reality. You do not need anybody to justify it. You don't need anybody else's approval or somebody see things the same way you saw it. The way you saw it is the way it happened for you, and any of your thoughts and your feelings are valid because they exist, not because of anybody else. And that is very contrary to what we've grown up with, potentially, unless you had the opposite. But I think for the most part, a lot of us seek that external validation, when really the only validation that matters is the one from within. So that's what I'm really trying to practice at the moment. And it's a practice because, like I said, it's not some of our automatic programming. It takes time, and it takes multiple attempts to believe it too. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love personal development. But yeah, I am aware that I have maybe been sending it a bit too hard on the content. And if I'm being completely vulnerable and honest with you, I think a big part of it comes from my deep feelings of unworthiness that I have adopted over the years. And I say that because I think we're all worthy. We're born worthy. We are worthy because we exist and not because of anything else. And worthiness isn't something you can acquire or buy or get. Or not something you build or borrow or whatever. It's within you because you exist. And I think it's more about unlearning the unworthiness that we somehow developed from multiple different experiences. And that's hard too, because wouldn't it be so much easier if we can just buy the handbag and be worthy all of a sudden? Like, no, it takes so much more work to actually go within, identify what happened to you, where did you get these limiting beliefs from, and address them and change your perspective. That is so much harder. Healing is hard, I tell you that, but you're not alone. And so many people are in the same position as you. We're all doing our best at the end of the day. And I think most people are trying to be better. And it's hard. It's really hard. But I think if we all come together, that is how we can support each other and get ourselves out of the struggle and out of the shame that we feel. I just started reading Dr. Brené Brown's book called The Power of Vulnerability, and I really haven't finished it enough to tell you all of my learnings, because honestly this book is blowing my mind. But she talks about how we're all suffering from a lot of shame, and shame is really dangerous because it's isolating and you feel like you're on your own. When you start to talk about shame, you realize you're not alone, and when it's met with empathy from other people, like, that's how we heal it and we can let go of it. So that's why I wanted to come on here, even though I'm not feeling great. Is I want to start the conversation, and in case anybody else is feeling like, why is this so hard? Like, why am I on my own? You're not on your own. We can get through it together by teaching each other things and sharing things. And when we find our own light within, it encourages other people to shine their light too. So I just think this sort of work is so healing, and I'm really trying to do that as well. But yeah, definitely recommend this book to anyone. One of the most interesting things she's talked about so far, and there's so many interesting things, is that there's the difference between shame, guilt, and blame. And maybe surface level, you're like, yeah, I get those. But to be honest, I don't think before this book I really could have distinguished the difference, at least between shame and guilt. And it's so interesting. So as I was saying, she describes shame is, it's very internal. It's about you, like you think you are a mistake, basically, or you're the issue, you're the problem. And then, but guilt is actually, it's sort of a similar feeling, but it's actually about the behavior. So instead of thinking you are the mistake, you think I made a mistake. And it's such a core difference, because when you can pin it on a behavior, we can change behaviors. And yes, it's hard, yes, it takes time, but at least you don't believe there's something fundamentally wrong with you, which you might feel in shame. So that was really helpful for me to learn that. And then there's also blame, and blame is just a coping mechanism to avoid pain by shifting the pain, or like blaming someone else, right? And I have blamed people my whole life. Like, I could think of the most remote thing and find a way to blame someone for it. And it actually also operates in the reverse for me, because then I will blame myself for things that happen to other people, which are so remote. Like, if a drunk driver hit a friend of mine on their way to see me, I would be like, well, it's my fault, because if I hadn't have messaged them to hang out on a Saturday night, then none of this would have happened. Like, and that is crippling, when like I'm not the drunk driver in this situation. Like, that wasn't my fault, but I can blame myself as much as I blame others, which is honestly so exhausting. And it's really scary to feel responsible for people like that over things that you really have no control over. So I resonated with her talking about blame, and honestly, I actually resonated with all of these, shame, guilt, blame. And she says they surface in self-talk, and she mentions a test called the test of self-conscious affect, which is how you can test to see, do you have more self-talk that is shame-based, guilt-based, or blame-based? And yeah, I was like, definitely blame, definitely guilt, and also shame. My therapist has picked up on that a lot. I don't think I really realized that before therapy, that I face a lot of shame. Anyway, the test is very interesting. So it's a lot of it's like self-assessment questions on social situations. And I thought it would be really interesting to share them with you, and then you can sort of go along and think where you're at. But highly encourage everyone to download it online. It took a bit of a Google search, but there's an app called Scribed, and you can get like a PDF version of this. And yeah, so basically there's a set of questions, and then you rate yourself, like, are you not likely or very likely to have that thought? So some that I've thought were really interesting were, okay, so you make a big mistake on an important project at work, people were depending on you, and your boss criticizes you. So then there's a series of sub questions. questions, because that's not a sub. Anyway, and think to yourself, like, would I be likely to think this or not very likely? And then you add up all the numbers at the end, and then that gives you your scores. So basically with this one, the questions are, you would think your boss should have been more clear about what was expected of you. So then you think, not likely, very likely, not likely is a 1, very likely is a 5. And then you would feel as though you want to hide, not likely, very likely. And then you think, I should have recognized the problem and done a better job. And I am very likely on all of those things. Like, I definitely would think I would be blaming my boss, being like, you should have been clearer. This is your fault. You didn't give me good instructions. Like, you know, my work can only be as good as your instructions. Like, no, not me. But at the same time, I would also be like, oh my gosh, like, I stuffed up. Like, this is embarrassing. This is humiliating. Like, I would be spiraling, and I would be like, yeah, I want to hide. I don't want to work here, or like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't like quit or anything, but I would be feeling a lot of shame, and taking it out on myself in a really negative way. Not that you could do it in a positive way. And then I also would be thinking, okay, like, I should have recognized the problem. Like, why didn't I do this? I should have done a better job. So I rated very likely on all of those, which doesn't feel ideal, because I feel like one should sort of stand out more, but it is what it is. Then there's another question, and it says, you attend your co-worker's housewarming party and you spill red wine on a new cream-coloured carpet, but you think no one notices. So these are the questions. You would stay late to help clean up the stain after the party. Would that be not likely or very likely? On a scale of 1 to 5. And then you would wish you were anywhere but the party. Not likely, very likely. You would wonder why your co-worker chose to serve red wine with the new light carpet. Honestly, all of those things. Like, I would absolutely stay back. I am no longer enjoying this party. I am doing all things to get rid of this carpet stain. Like, and so yeah, very likely for the first one. And then I definitely would wish I was anywhere but the party. I would be regretting my entire decision to go to this party, all of my choices leading up to it and everything. And at the same time, I would also be like, yeah, why did you serve red wine with this light colored carpet? Like, not my fault, sorry. So yeah, I realized, so yeah, very likely to all of those as well. And honestly, I probably rate them all as 5. And yeah, so no surprise, my results, I was high in every single category, and that means I experienced a lot of each of self-talk, but the winner was shame, which was a little bit surprising. I think that I would have thought blame would be my biggest, but there were a couple which were super interesting, like, you know, if you throw a ball, while playing around, you throw a ball and it hits your friend in the face. And one of the things was like, oh, you think your friend needs more practice catching. And I'd be like, absolutely not. Like, that has nothing to do with them. That is my terrible ball skills to not be able to throw a ball properly, which, if you know me, is also true. Anyway, so I don't really blame everyone in every situation. That's basically what I'm saying. And I can be I'm a lot more compassionate to everyone but myself, basically. So that was honestly really overwhelming to rank so highly in every single category and think to myself, oh my gosh, like, I thought I'd come so far with healing, and here I am with so much work to do. Felt really drained, exhausted, and it's not encouraging, even though I know I'm making so much progress and I feel like I've really improved my life in a lot of areas. It was just sort of a big big, sigh, literally being like, okay, we just got to keep going. Healing is hard. Healing is great. Healing is amazing, but it's hard. So yeah, that's why I was feeling super drained. And then at the end of this test, there was also a questionnaire on self-compassion, and it was a series of questions like, I try to be loving toward myself when I'm feeling emotional pain. Like, I do not do that. When times are really difficult, I tend to be tough on myself. Yep, absolutely do that. And basically what I realized with this test also is my self-compassion is really low, and add that to the list of things I need to work on, honestly. But reading the responses and seeing what I do want to work towards, like being kind to myself when I'm suffering, to me, this seems like the antidote to all that negative self-talk. Is when you learn how to treat yourself kindly, that's how we can get over all the negative self-talk. And I really think that is a process of learning what makes you feel good and what is nourishing and what feels like rest. And resting. I feel like a lot of us weren't modeled this. Society liked to tell us that our worth lies in productivity and look after everyone else, but don't look after yourself. And I really think it's a journey of coming back to those things and being like, how do I look after me, and how do I know when to rest? Because I don't think a lot of us grew up knowing or like seeing how people did that, because to everyone's credit around us, they were doing so much, but they didn't really stop for themselves maybe. So try to learn what nourishes you, because my therapist asked me what nourishes me and I had no idea. Like, I was like, oh, well, when I'm feeling drained, I look at social media. And she's like, that's not nourishing. I was like, oh. Okay, well, like, I watch Netflix, like, that's super relaxing. She's like, yeah, but it's not nourishing. And nourishing is something that makes you feel better. It's not just a distraction or an avoidance, or avoiding something. It's something that feels good. It's like patting your pet, or putting on a nice moisturizer, or journaling, or honestly, the list is probably different for everyone, but I encourage you to have a think about what feels good for you and trying to come up with your own activities that you can do when you're feeling tired, burnt out, stressed, anything like that. And I just think, it's a process of learning that, and putting yourself first and learning what feels good to you, because something that feels good to you, so someone else might not feel good to you. So basically, healing is a massive journey and we're all in it together. So be kind to each other and be kind to yourself, because this is hard. But I know we'll get there, and I know everyone's doing their best. So I'm sending everyone so much love in these really difficult, awful times. So much going on in the world. Look after yourself, please. Reach out if you're struggling with anything, please. And let me know if you figure out some things that nourish you. I would really love to expand my knowledge on this and pass along any other helpful suggestions. Okay, love you guys so much. Oh my gosh, I already feel better after recording this whole episode. Anyway, love you. Bye.